Welcome back to another edition of Knowledge Gumbo Conversations. Here on Knowledge Gumbo Conversations, we like to have those discussions that are interesting about topics in history, but also things that affect women of a certain age in a certain range, Gen X and older. And hopefully, if you're not in that range, you're a little bit younger, you can still pick up some tips and nuggets from our discussion. And as we always do, we start off with a little snippet from the Knowledge Gumbo newsletter, which you are more than welcome to join and make it a part of your weekly information consumption. You can scan the QR code in the corner. Let me know. Sign up for it. Join the family, join the discussion. Newsletter comes out every Friday morning, and we would love for you to join the family. From last week's newsletter, I had a discussion about, in my intro of the newsletter, to me taking some equipment, some camera equipment, some video equipment, and selling it at an event that KEH was having, which was marvelous, by the way. The man that helped me was on point, but it got me thinking. When we get rid of things, we're making space for something else. We're making space for more. Because as I got rid of a lot of the equipment, have a small office here, and it makes a difference. And it creates room for creativity. It makes you relax because you're not looking at a mess. And as they like to say, your environment is a reflection of what's going on in your mind. And so when your desk, when your office, when your bedroom, or your house is cluttered, it's a reflection of what's going on in your mind. Your mind is cluttered with 50 million things, and there's no focus and no direction. But when you clean out and you give space, you create room for creativity. You create a space that allows you to be calm. But on the flip side of that as well, what cleaning out my space also got me going down a thought process of, what else can I get rid of that's in my life? Even though right now it's not the time. Normally for me, between Christmas and New Year's, I go through all my social media, I go through the contacts in my phone, and I clean it out. Unfortunately, as we get older, some of that comes from the people we've lost. But a lot of that, especially in social media, it's just people aren't adding value, or people just are friending you because they want to be nosy. They want to be a voyeur to your life, but they don't want to contribute. They don't want to add value to your life. Because the way I look at it, if I'm following you, it's because you either add value, you're funny, you add humor, and everyone needs to laugh. A good belly laugh at least once a day. You make me think, put myself outside myself, or make me think of situations and things in ways that I hadn't done before. And because you do those things and you add this value, I like having you in my space. You help me to grow and be more than what I would normally be. But if you don't do any of those things, you have to go. And I do that so that I can make room for more people who do those things to manifest and show up in my life. or maybe manifest isn't the right word, so that I have more room to attract those kinds of people into my life. But one of the other things that popped up in my head was, who in my life that I'm carrying that I need to let go of. And I mean that from the standpoint of with the cameras and the equipment, I've moved several times in the last five, 5 years, 5 to 10 years. And I've just carried a lot of that equipment from place to place to place when I knew I was no longer using that equipment. And that was just more space it was taking up, whether it was in a storage facility, whether it was in the place that I was staying. And we can carry people like that. People you know you need to let go of, and you just don't because you don't want to have that confrontation. You don't want to have, or it doesn't even have to be a confrontation. You don't want to have that conversation. So I'm just asking you, let's start a conversation on how do you know when you need to let go of someone? How do you need how do you know when you need to let go of a situation? And just what I want to say, just blanketly, how do you know when it's time to clean your space? And what I want to do, and I hope you can make some suggestions too, is how do you maintain the cleanliness of that space? Whether it is physical space or whether it is people, that you don't go back and pick up what you just put down. Because I believe we're all guilty of that time and time again. So, as we transition to our next segment, address it or let it slide. This week's version of address it or let it slide is a loved one jokes about therapy being for white people. A loved one jokes about therapy being for white people. Do you address it or do you let it slide? For me, I have to address it because everyone needs help. And part of what is killing a lot of Black women, especially, is holding everything inside. Because there's a misnomer that women in general, oh, we have our girlfriends, we have our sister circles and everything where we talk. But we do a lot of talking, I find, over food, hence knowledge gumbo. But a lot of times, those conversations don't always go as deep as they need to go. And we don't always ask the hard questions because we don't want someone to ask us those hard questions. But if we're going to be family and we're going to share this meal, we got to be willing to ask the hard questions and make the hard statements. And sometimes the statement is, as much as I love you, I am not in a position to help you. You need to get some help. And I'm willing to support your journey in getting that help. Because I despise any statement that's has that tagline of that's for white people. We all bleed the same. We all dress the same. We all care about our families. We all embrace our cultures the same. And unfortunately, for a lot of Black women, we suffer from having a lot in our DNA of having to hold everything in. And we need to be in a position where we release it so that we can heal, so that the next generation doesn't have to carry all of those burdens. So let me know in the comments below if a loved one jokes about therapy being for white people only. Do you address it or do you let it slide? I'm in favor of addressing it. As we wrap up to our close, let's look at what else don't I know? And um, this week I started watching the new Ken Burns documentary on the American Revolution. And I was wondering about Black women's contributions to the American Revolution and how it's very much not documented, where there's rumors, where there's credible speculation, but a lot of the names and faces were not permanently documented. And one thing I did not know, and this is one of those cases where the name wasn't documented for safety reasons and they don't have firm documentation of it, but it's very credible speculation, although it hasn't been confirmed, is that there was an agent called 355. And in their documentation of the Culper spy ring for the American Revolution, 355 meant lady, meaning the spy was a lady. It was a code word for woman who provided intelligence. And this agent 355 was speculated to be a Black woman. And she provided information that helped the Americans win the Revolutionary War. And she was a major component of documenting conversations and proving that Benedict Arnold was a traitor. And a lot of people say, well, why do you think that Agent 355 was Black? It's because Black women were frequently able to get into homes and offices, and because they were maids or slaves, they moved around and they weren't visible. People weren't concerned about them being in the room when things were being discussed. But on the flip side, that also meant that although these women were excellent spies, their stories weren't recorded, their names weren't recorded. So I found that very interesting that there was a spy network made up of plenty of Black women that helped America win the American Revolution. The things you just don't know until you go looking for the information. And especially in these day and age, I'd say we need to go look at this information, get this information, because other people are trying to get rid of it altogether. And we have a responsibility to have the whole truth. There are two sides to every coin, and two things can be true at the same time. George Washington was a great general, a great first president, but he was also a slave owner. And he also knew slavery was wrong, but he continued to support it. Two things can be true. There are no such thing as unflawed heroes. And the sooner that we admit that we discuss it, and make that person whole, the better off we're going to be. So that's it for this week's Knowledge Gumbo Conversations. I appreciate you coming in. And like I said, please feel free to comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for coming by tonight. And before you go, please hit the like button. Share this with someone who likes these kind of conversations, or someone you just want to start a conversation with. Use one of the points we shared today to start that conversation. If you want more and to go deeper into things like this, please feel free to check out the newsletter. Like I said, the QR code that way and sign up for it. Appreciate you. I think you will enjoy it. And just in case you don't get the QR code, gonna share the link where you can sign up for the newsletter. If you're watching this later on replay, please hashtag below replay gang so we can see who's coming in even after the fact, because we want to keep this stuff going. We learn and grow and do better by conversing and even debating, because we can disagree without being disagreeable. So the links for everything will be in the description. I appreciate your time, because that's one thing you can never get back. So I appreciate you sharing your time with me. And we will definitely see you next week.
Beat drops heavy, heartbeat steady, ready.
Check the mirror, see a queen in the reflection. No doubt, full steam, no signs of